Hey everybody, it's Runt with you. We're going to be doing a little bit something different on the channel today. If you remember on Tuesday, the election between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, Sergeant Manley and I ran against each other for President of the United States. I told you guys this was going to be coming. This is the Runt presidency. So, without further ado, I have brought in one of my mentors, somebody that I talk to a lot, who really keeps me grounded more than anything else, and it's Ghostrider, and he's going to be in kind of a chief of staff role, and when we run into policy discussion or whatever else, then we're going to have at it and kind of talk it out, and hopefully you guys learn something. Hopefully we have fun, and who knows, there might be a funny moment in there too. So Ghostrider, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Now,
I'm really happy to be able to join you in this, and looking forward to our discussions.
Oh, absolutely. And so everybody knows, Democracy 3 is a game that's available on Steam. I want to say it was like $20, give or take, and that was with all the expansions and everything. What I'm planning on doing with this series is really, I want to take the starting US that is kind of in a mess, and I want to turn it around. I have certain goals. I want to get rid of the budget deficit. I want to get rid of the national debt, which in the game is completely unrealistic. It's like $3 trillion. We could only wish. And B, make everybody a little happier and kind of bring America back to, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So really, within the game, we want to go for a liberal capitalist society. And I'm following off of Pravis Gaming, if you guys haven't looked him up. He's kind of the inspiration as to the way I'm going to run this game, because he was very successful at it. Overall, I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm probably going to break it up into years the same way he did. So at the end of 4 years, we're going to have an election and see if we win and all that. So let's go ahead and get into it. What do you say, Ghostrider?
Let's hit it. I'm looking forward to it.
Alrighty, we are going to be the United States. It says here, the United States of America is a federal republic consisting of 50 states. The USA is the third largest country by land area and population, and is also the world's largest national economy, with an estimated 19% of the global GDP when measured by purchasing power parity. The country accounts for 39% of the global military spending, despite containing only 4.46% of the global population. The U.S. President acts as both head of state and head of government, as well as commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces. And then here's some stats and so forth, blah, blah, blah. We can get into that later. None of this is really going to really play much of a role in where we go with this. So let's go ahead and kick it off. We are 4 years. We have 2 terms. And let's see... we're going to be the Runt and Crew party, and we're going to be running against the has-beens. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
So there it is, and like I said, we're not a monarchy, so I'm not going to check that. Compulsory voting, we don't have that in the United States. If you feel that you can get your point across by abstaining, completely you're right. But, if you don't, have an opinion one way or the other, don't complain when it doesn't go the way you wanted it to. It's kind of my view on it. And then hurricanes and earthquakes, we have natural disasters. We have natural disasters on. Difficulty is on. Innate socialism is there. Innate liberalism is there. And political apathy, which is really, let's take a talking point here and talk about that. 58%. I think that's pretty realistic, in my opinion, about, people. There's things you don't talk about. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about politics in public settings. And that kind of plays into the political apathy, don't you think?
Yeah, I think if you look at our history, you look at the founding of the country, you look at a lot of things throughout our history, politics was a fair game because it was not us against them. It was different, different opinions. Different people had different ideas of how to achieve certain things or what was important, what wasn't. But it wasn't black and white. If you don't agree with me, you're a bad person. And so, in the last many years, it's become to most people are afraid to discuss politics because they don't want to get into that highly adversarial discussion.
Well, what apathy is just the lack of want, or lack of want to
Yep.
change. And like I said, I think the number is pretty dead on. So let's go ahead and get into the first term of my presidency here. Let's see, gerrymandering constituencies, inventing the internet. That's hilarious. Compiling misleading statistics. Oh man, they hit our system right on the nose, didn't they? All right.
Yeah, what is it? Liars have statistics and statistics lie, something like
Yes,
that.
I never heard that, but I could see it for sure. So, alrighty, click to return to government. There we are. It says, congratulations on your election victory. Welcome to your new job as president. Woohoo! Anyway, the lives of all 316,668,000 citizens are now in your hands. As you will imagine, there are a number of situations and concerns that you will need to deal with as soon as possible while keeping an eye on the long-term improvement of our citizens' quality of life. Plus, do not forget that you face re-election in 4 years, so you will need to monitor the opinion polls and our party membership. Good luck. So, right now, unemployment is kind of middle of the road, which is kind of contemporary. GDP is kind of in the crapper, especially with the U.S. having recently gone through some issues with credit rating and the global economy, Brexit, and all that. It kind of makes sense. Health is completely crap. Crime is kind of off the charts, which when we talked about this before, we said that we wanted to bring up that crime is actually at an all-time low in America. It's just the media is, because media makes it more in your face, more instantaneous knowledge. It seems
Exactly.
that crime is up, and crime. You gave me statistics the other day when we were talking that crime is, relatively. I mean, it's down 1 or 2% or something like that nationally.
Oh no, it's extremely low. It's the lowest it's been. I don't know exactly but at least since the 40s or 50s. Violent crime especially peaked in the 70s and has continued to fall throughout, and is an order of magnitude less than it was back in the 70s. But our 24-hour news cycle, our multiple media outlets, social media, all those things, means that you hear about it more, and we see more. But the FBI statistics say otherwise.
Well, it's almost like because of what do I want, saturation.
Well, yeah, and of course, what was a murder that was shocking, um, the next week is another murder or another incident, and oh well, that's another one. So, you have to find ways. The media has to find ways to get viewers, to get listeners, and they find the thing. And again, with our instantaneous communication, something that happens anywhere in the U.S. or anywhere in the world, we know about it very quickly, and we get the interpretation that the news organizations give us about those incidents.
Okay. And education, America, we're not, anything like, I want to say, I think Japan has got the highest, national IQ or something like that. But the U.S. isn't that far behind, relatively,
Yeah. I mean, we certainly aren't top of the world. We're low in a lot of areas, midpoint in others, but it's not. I don't think it would be in the red for sure.
Right, and then poverty, yeah, that kind of goes with unemployment. So let's go ahead and begin our term of office. And at the start of this, let's go through and talk about, okay, we have political capital that we can spend to enact certain policies, change certain policies, get rid of certain policies, however we want to do it. Kind of the same thing political capital wise as President Barack Obama with the Affordable Care Act. He had, when that came to be, if I'm not mistaken, a majority in the House, a majority in the Senate, as well as holding the top office. So he used basically every piece of political capital he had at the time and still almost didn't pass that. Because, even Democrats couldn't get behind the way it was written at the time. So that's one of those things, and it's kind of like the real world in that we have only a limited amount of points, inside of a game to actually enact, different things. It shows here, we're making 1.1, almost $1.2 trillion a quarter, which the game is separated into quarters. So everything we do for this turn is going to be 3 months in game time. As well as we have expenditure, which is 1.3 trillion almost. So we've got a deficit of about 100 billion, give or take, in our budget. And that's one of the first things that I want to address, is we have to have capital to be able to maneuver ourselves into a place where we can enact certain policies. And then our national debt, like I said, is like something in the game is kind of unrealistic, $3.2 trillion. But I think the developers of the game wanted to give you the ability to actually eliminate the debt, which is kind of at this point a non-entity in the real world.
Yeah.
So now,
well, you had to have at least a realistic opportunity to.
Now, sometimes, and you've seen a couple times on my screen here where a couple times I've hovered over one of these, little, I guess you could call them buttons here, and it shows different lines. And we'll just hover over one right now. Let's see. This one is car usage. And if you look at all the red and green things, it kind of tells you what's feeding car usage by the arrows facing toward it in green, and then what's detracting from it in red going to it, and then what it is affecting specifically by the green and red going out. So everything in the game is tied into each other. So if you look at car usage here, it's affecting the environment, but car usage is being affected by the car tax, the petroleum tax, middle earnings, poor earnings, traffic congestion, bus usage, and road building is actually positively affecting car usage, but car usage is positively affecting, which is a bad thing, the asthma epidemic that the U.S. has, as well as it's negatively affecting the environment. It is, raising CO2 emissions, and so forth. So that's kind of how this goes about. And let's take a look at some of the major problems we've got right now. We've got antisocial behavior. We've got internet crime. We've got an alcohol problem, and we have vigilante mobs. We've got Batman running around in our streets. And then we have asthma. We have a drug problem. We have a skills shortage. We have pollution, which is not a good thing. And we have an uncompetitive economy at this point, as well as, I want to say, homelessness is kind of kicking in there. So before we can handle any of these red issues, we've actually got to handle some of the budget issues that we've got. And I came up with a solution that one of the things that I want to tackle first, there's no reason at this point that the U.S. should be the world police. So what I want to do is it will adversely affect unemployment, but it will save us so much money by basically not necessarily pulling all of our troops back, but, pulling back some of the military funding. And from my experience in the military, we learned very well how to do the mission at a top-notch level without necessarily having all of the best stuff. You learned how to stretch what you had is basically what I'm getting at. So what?
Right, and your long-term vision is not to totally eliminate or cut back the military to an impotent force. Your long-term vision is to continue to have a strong military relative to the rest of the world. But to get there, like you said, you need to do some trimming.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, and this is where we get into, we lower our military from an overwhelming force, which is we have to lower it, because if you look, it's $225 billion a quarter. Like I said, it will adversely affect the Patriot demographic. It will adversely affect state employees. It will adversely affect state employees and income and a whole bunch of stuff. But it will actually make liberals a little bit happier with us, I think. But what I want to do is I want to reduce this down to about the top end of, or the bottom end of highly trained. Yeah, highly trained, which if you look at it, 165 billion, give or take. So that alone is going to cut the deficit that we have in the quarterly budget by a significant amount, to where we can do some other stuff. So we're going to go ahead and apply that. Do you concur?
Yeah. Like we said, you're not decimating the military. You're just dialing it back. Do more with less. Cut some of the fat, and attack the budget deficit, and which then will ultimately let us attack the overall national debt.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, that's really my goal it's going to probably, over the course of this first term, really make people either super pleased with me or make a lot of people unhappy with me. But I think overall, globally, not only are we going to be seeing that we're being more responsible with what we have, but we're actually going to be moving forward as far as maybe bringing people more on board with kind of the ultimate plan of, let's get our house in order before we start going to try to clean somebody else's. So we're going to go ahead and apply that and spend 19 political capital. We have 6 left, and I've got a couple other ideas here. We've got some major issues that are feeding into like vigilante mobs and such, like this racial tension stuff here. So there's a policy in here that I want to look at, and it's under Law and Order, and it's going to be the Race Discrimination Act, which, and I forgot to go over this in the beginning when I started talking about the reduction in the military budget. If I'm not mistaken, it takes something like 8 quarters for that to actually kick into its full effect. So it's not just a giant pullback. It's really kind of a downsizing over time, where we're going to see a little bit more of it more immediately. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to implement this as kind of a stopgap measure, so to speak, to try to stem this racial tension problem that we have. It's going to raise ethnic minorities' opinions of us, our liberals, and we're getting liberalism membership. And I know there are a lot of people that are going to be watching this video and saying, hey, Runt is absolutely leftist, liberal, whatever else. And I think this is this. I'm not. I'm, as far as politics wise in the real world, I'm very, very middle of the road. I have some left tendencies. I have some right tendencies, but overall, the game, and we talked about this before we started recording. I wanted to bring up, what the game considers liberal versus what Americans see as liberal, and I wanted you to talk about that a little bit, Ghostrider.
Yeah, I'll be glad to. Actually, Wikipedia has a really good definition, and I just thought I'd read it, give them credit for it here. Classical liberalism is a political ideology and a branch of liberalism which advocates civil liberties and political freedom with a representative democracy under the rule of law, and emphasizes economic freedoms found in economic liberalism, which is also called free market capitalism. I think that will surprise a lot of folks watching this, in that when they think of liberals here, we tend to think of the Democratic Party and the liberals that we hear talked about in the political system. And while the liberals we hear and think about here in the U.S. started that way, there's been a lot of changes. And again, kind of quoting from Wikipedia, modern liberalism in the United States includes issues such as same-sex marriage, voting rights for all adult citizens, civil rights, environmentalism, and government protection of freedom from want. And national social services, education, access to health care, all intended to meet the responsibility of promote the general welfare led by the government. So as opposed to the classic liberals, the liberals we think of here in the United States maybe would be more thought of as progressives. They have some social, again, classically called socialism things. And so that'll get people confused. And we're hoping people, as they watch this, understand that the liberalism here is really, I think, best summed up, and what you're looking at is free market capitalism.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, I'm very middle of the road. Second Amendment is very important to me, which is a very right tendency, and a very left tendency of me. Maybe it's because I'm a content creator on YouTube. As long as it's not getting into anybody else's cookie jar, I'm pretty cool with it, So,
Yep.
So, anyhow, let's go ahead. We've got 4 political capital. I've got another idea that will hit a couple bases right off that we're having problems with, and it goes back into law and order. And this here is the community policing, which is it's gonna take a little bit of time here. The 5 quarters that you see me moving my mouse around on. It costs 1 political capital to implement, and it's going to cost us a little bit of money, but overall, it gives people ownership of their community. Kind of think of it as a government-funded government-funded neighborhood watch program. Watch your buddy's back, he'll watch your back. We're all going to get along fine. And maybe if we all share the load of policing, it's not going to, then we don't have the Gestapo-looking police force out there in riot gear and stuff like that. Take care of your own, and we'll take care of you while you do it, is kind of my view on it.
Absolutely. It's to move away from the us versus them, the cops versus everybody else kind of mindset that sometimes pops up, and put it back where it really is that police officers, just like you and me, are civilians, and we're all members of the community, and a lot of the time members of the exact same community, and so it should be seen as police officers are here to help the community and be part of the community, not be us versus them.
Oh, yeah. And it kind of goes along with, how do I want to put it? I don't want anybody to think that this is like Barney Fife and Gomer Pyle, citizens arrest kind of thing. But it stems to kind of the get rid of the no snitching attitude in areas, and I dealt with it when I was on the road in law enforcement, where we'd come across a crime and there were 30 people standing there watching it, but when you went to interview somebody, they didn't want to become involved because of whatever reasons, that's my friend or whatever else, which really ultimately is going to affect the ability for the police to do their job. So this kind of plays into that, and I'm going to raise it to maximum funding. It's going to cost us quite a bit of money. So we trimmed a bunch out of the military, but we're spending some money we haven't fixed the deficit yet. We're only about halfway there.
Right, and the downsides in the military, there's a real logical fit here. The folks that maybe no longer are in the military could join in the community policing effort.
Very much so. Who better to have trained, or who better to, help organize these, individual little pockets than people that are familiar with, organizing small groups, which the military is very good at. So it definitely plays into it. So let's go ahead and apply that change. We've got 3 political capital to spend. And there's one more that I want to do, and being this is kind of playing into the we've got the community out there policing themselves. We're going to enact a witness protection program, which is going to take a little bit of time to get up and running, but it basically is going to, okay, if you do see something going on, we're going to make sure that you're safe until the situation is resolved. Is my view on it, which ultimately the only thing it really affects is violent crime, and it reduces it. So we're going to go ahead and fully fund that. And I think that's about all we can do really for the first quarter of this episode. So let's go ahead and kick off the next one. What do you say?
Yeah, sure. And I think it's important maybe to mention that a couple of these things would have required funding from the government. And unless they're already included in budgets and laws that have been passed by the Congress, then in real life, the president can't just wave his wand and make these things happen. The president can have it as an agenda item. The president can say this is important to him or her and take it to the politicians, the legislators, to propose laws and vote and approve laws. But in the U.S., the president can't just wave his wand and say, okay, automatically we're going to have this new thing happen. It has to be a joint venture of the legislators and the executive branch. But for purposes of this game, obviously that would be way too complex to model.
Well, not only that, but we had talked about it before, the, reducing the military funding. That is, if I'm not mistaken, the Congress and the Senate that,
Well, yeah, exactly. The budget is, the legislature, from the House. But once, the military, the president's commander in chief, he has a lot of discretion. The Congress would have to take specific measures to prevent him from reducing military. So the president does have a lot of leeway there. Some other things, not so much.
Well, okay. See, I learned something even. So, okay, let's click to return to government. Alrighty. So, we don't really have anything in our GDP, unemployment, health, crime, education, or poverty that's moved, but nothing is rising and nothing's dropping. So, people are still okay with us to the most part. See, we've got a policy question that we need to address. See, economic forecast, good news, the global economy is doing well and is having a positive effect on our GDP, which does look like it raised slightly. And then we've got 30%. How we got elected with 30%, I don't know, but,
Maybe some of them were having second thoughts.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and it's just like approval ratings of presidents throughout their their tenure is,
Right.
people are happy with them, people are unhappy with them. You can't please everybody, and that's one of the things that really needs to understand.
Yep.
Ah, my smartwatch is having a fit. Let's see. Uh, let's go ahead and discuss this debt protection law. It says debt collection agencies have been in the news because of the aggressive methods they are using to extract payment from people who owe large sums of money. These debt collection agencies provide credit to people whom larger, more respectable companies will not lend money. A law is proposed to limit the ways in which such agencies can operate. And if we choose to, we can limit the agency activity. These agencies are preying on the weakest and poorest in our society, often tricking them into borrowing money at exorbitant rates that they can never repay. This is little more than extortion, and the government should act at once to limit severely the activities of such unscrupulous companies, or B, allow them to operate, which is nobody forces people to borrow money they can't repay, and to restrict the rights of debt agencies to recover legitimate debts would be counterproductive. People need to learn to live within their means and not expect the state to bail them out of trouble if they cannot learn to do so. Me personally, I wholeheartedly kind of believe in option B, where I felt it was wrong for the federal government to step in and bail out banks and such that had done this. However, if I'm bank A and you're bank B and I let basically anybody borrow money, and next thing you know I run out of money because I'm letting these people borrow money that can't repay it, then I'm going to go under in a capitalist society.
Right.
So should I be
Well, this
bailed out
one's
by the
just a
federal
little.
government?
Well, it's the whole too big to fail thing that we heard
Mm-hmm.
about. But this one's a little confusing in that, for the most part, what we think of as debt collection agencies don't also lend money. I'm sure there's exceptions, um, but I think this is focused on predatory lending, and those are out there. People that put out high risk loans with very high interest rates, um, knowing that some people won't be able to pay them. And then that does turn around into a collection. So basically, it's saying, um, uh, you know, do you restrict? Uh, do you forgive people? They take out. What it's saying is, do we forgive people their loans? They took a loan that they couldn't repay, or they're not able to repay now. So we're going to make the company eat it. And with trying to be a capitalistic, classic liberal, no. People do need to live within their means.
So then we're going for option B, yes?
Agree.
Alrighty, there it is. So, uh, let's see. Now, okay, we enacted a few policies, and we reduced the military spending. Now, overall, we were at 98 billion, so we've saved about $10 billion. We enacted three policies, if I'm not mistaken, to go into this quarter, the second quarter, the basically the first 180 days of office. Where okay, we've trimmed some fat, we've enacted some stuff to kind of appease things as they go. Now the other major point, and I'm going to bring up our budget here real quick. If you look at our expenditure right now, the thing we're spending the most money on is state pensions. If you look at it from the game standpoint, the state pensions is something similar to Social Security. Which under FDR, Social Security was supposed to be a short-term measure, if I'm not mistaken. During his tenure, for stemming, people, that had worked for so long that all of a sudden had nothing.
Well, yeah, it was designed to be the safety net, and I don't have my history whether it was FDR or Hoover. I'm weak on that one, but yeah, it was not designed to be, um, the retirement plan for the entire country.
Right. So what?
It was designed to help take care of those that had fallen on hard times in their retirement, and to keep them out of the poorhouse, if you will, so to speak.
So my proposal is this: try to get people to invest in themselves and not depend so much on the federal government, and reduce that state pension, Social Security, whatever you will, and get more into privatized retirements and teach people about IRAs and 401k and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and attack that in our budget, state pensions, and it's going to be huge to lower it. It's going to be all of our political capital, and I don't want to completely abolish it, but I want to reduce it enough because it's $200 billion a quarter that we're spending. Let's go ahead and bring that down, give or take, to just the beginning of low. And see, let's bring it up to a nice even $100 billion a quarter. So,
well, if you look out there, at your poll, this has got a 55% popularity. So while it does have impact, overall, people are in favor.
Mm-hmm. And in the short term, it's going to hurt. But in the long term, because we're going to have more money to get things going other places, it should be able to basically level itself back out. And somehow the retired are really, really happy with it, which I don't get. The poor are happy with it. Retired income goes up. Socialism, wow. And retired membership. More people are retiring, even though I'm cutting those state pensions. That's something I don't understand in the game, but we'll just have to run with it. So, and this is one of those Obamacare moments in the game. I'm spending all of the political capital that I have in the game for this quarter to make this budget, constrained. So we're going to go ahead and confirm that policy, and that's it. We have zero political power, political capital, whatever you want to call it. Go big or go home at this point. So let's go ahead and go to the next.
Well, and that's the thing with budget changes. Anytime, the sooner you make the change, the more the effect over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Delay costs you.
Yeah. So let's see. We've reduced the military. We've now reduced state pensions. We've enabled the Race Discrimination Act. We've brought in community policing as well as a witness protection plan. So another thing that I want to do is I want to get kind of, that hurt our polls report. 22%. We lost 8% over that one. Crime is still kind of a little higher than I want, so that might be our next focus. But we have freedom of information as a policy discussion that we need to bring up. So we'll go into our third quarter. Oh, Church of Christ are holding town hall meetings to express their anger at the government. That can't be good. And yes, if you're curious, I can be assassinated in this game.
Yeah, that would cut the series short.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Alrighty, so let's talk about this freedom of information policy discussion here. There have been calls for a law to increase the availability of information held in databases about citizens without their knowledge. These include records held by private medical companies, insurance companies, debt collection agencies, as well as information held by government departments. We can either reject this proposal. Nobody likes the idea of government holding information about them, but in some circumstances, this needs to be done. The government isn't out to spy on everyone, but passing this law will just make it harder for the intelligence services to keep a watch on serious criminals and terrorists. It will also affect a large number of businesses who have customer databases who will be swamped with yet more bureaucracy. Or B, Proposed Freedom Act. It's essential that we have this law passed as it is one of the checks and balances required in a truly free society. The average law-abiding citizen should not be spied on or monitored by multi-international corporations with computer databases and the potential for abuse by government agencies if the citizens cannot view what data is being stored is huge. Here's where I come at it from my law enforcement experience. To me, I believe that very much in the you are innocent until proven guilty. And so the option B, to me, makes better sense because transparency, I think, is the best policy. If you don't want people to think you're corrupt, then open the doors and let them see that you're not corrupt, kind of thing. And that's kind of where I'm leaning. You got input on this? Because I may be just out there flapping somewhere.
No, I think probably not written in here is, there has to be exceptions for ongoing criminal investigations, those kind of things. But those exceptions happen today. You can't do a wiretap if it hasn't been approved by a judge. It hasn't, been reviewed. So, those kind of things are out there. What I think of when I see this is the First Amendment contains freedom of the press, and what you can look at that as freedom of information. The press needs to be free to print the things that need to be known and out there so people can read it. And of course, in today's world, with instant electronic communication, people need the freedom to be able to know what information is being held by them. So I think it falls right in with the constitutional, the amendments to the Constitution.
That's an awesome point. Very much so. I kind of was leaning that it was unconstitutional. I was actually going for Fifth Amendment, illegal search and seizure. But
well, and yeah, true, absolutely fits in there as well. It just kind of hit me as we were talking about it. Freedom of information, freedom of the press, kind of.
Oh, absolutely. So
I could be flapping too.
This is absolutely unconstitutional. So we're going to propose the Freedom Act by saying that to not enact it is basically we're, as the federal government, just walking all over the Constitution.
Right. And again, it's an act, right, which means it needs to go through the Congress. But in the role play here, we're playing that the House and Senate are both aligned behind our political party. So if we propose a law, we can figure out that they are going to pass that law and send it to you to sign as the president. So
Okay. What fantastic way of looking at it. I never thought about that. It would be interesting if they did turn this into a multiplayer game. And developers, if you watch my series, that would be a great thing. Make this a 1 to 10 player game where you could have your, Senate Majority Leader, your Senate Minority Leader, all those different people that play into this, and whether or not something passes is completely dependent on kind of the ruling majority or the leanings of certain people. There would be definitely a cool multiplayer aspect into this game. So, let's see. Because crime is still an issue, and I'm starting to worry about my security a little bit because I've got people that are really not happy with me. This tried to stem some of this and make some jobs. So, state pensions.
Well, I think you should point out too that at the top line, we've seen something momentous happen.
Oh yeah,
we've gone from a deficit to a surplus.
Oh yeah,
this quarter.
And that, what I said was one of the first things I wanted to do was handle budget deficit. And we've successfully done that in about 6 months of game time. So this is working out pretty good. Liberals,
right, and tell people about that. They're going to get behind you more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, go out there, and now you've got a little wiggle room to be able to do some more things.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things I want to do is I want to spend some money to make jobs. And because and what you guys that are watching the video, you're going to see this as state prisons. This is what it means by state prisons is federal prisons. If you look at, that's why we have Secretary of State. that kind of thing. The state as a nation. So don't think that this is, the whole 9 yards. So by basically giving and extensive rehabilitation, I think overall, what it does is, okay, you've been caught, you've been put into the system. We're going to do our best to make sure you don't come back. Repeat offenders is what I'm looking at here. If you give them extensive rehabilitation, give them a trade, not necessarily give them, they're going to have to earn it, just like anybody else, but they have to do it in a very controlled environment like a prison. We're also creating jobs. Liberals are being happy with us, and our unemployment goes down, and crime goes down quite a bit, relatively. It's actually affected by about 6%. So that'll help in the long run, and it really doesn't cost us a whole lot, relatively. So relatively, $35.55 billion a quarter is relative peanuts when you're dealing with trillions of dollars. So, and then to kind of get other people a little happier with us is I want to get more people involved in, let's see if I can find it. Where is it? Where is it? Young youth, young entrepreneurs. That would be in economy, I think. Young entrepreneurs. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to invest a small amount of money. We're not really digging into the surplus. We're kind of coming out at a zero balance at this point. We've got $44 billion. We just spent $35 billion. This is going to cost us a max of like $2 billion. So we're not going to be making a ton of money to pay off that debt, but we're going to ultimately still be at a positive. We're going to be at a surplus balance with our budget, but we're getting people to support themselves better. The capitalists are happy with this idea. The youth are happy by getting, helping them learn how to create their own jobs and start making that very free enterprise kind of, if you come up with a good idea for a job, then go for it kind of thing. You could even look at it as a lot of people, and I know a lot of parents. If I would have told my dad growing up that, hey, I want to do YouTube for a living, my dad would have been, you're high, go get a job, Right. But when you look at it, the balance of once you become, somebody that is basically making enough money to support themselves on YouTube, is very much a job, A. And B, they have to treat it like a job, or it's going to ultimately fail because they're going to not do their taxes right. They're not going to, something is going to give up. And if we teach people how to take a good idea, run with it, and do it right, then ultimately it's going to be better off in the long run for everybody involved. So.
Absolutely. People forget that, and I don't know the percentage, but it's high. The majority of employment, by far, the majority of employment in the U.S. is with small businesses. Mm-hmm. You hear in the news about the monster Fortune 50 and all those, businesses with hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of employees. But the majority of employment in the U.S. is with small businesses. Mm-hmm. And this is the way to get more of those up, running, and successful.
Well, many hands make light work. So
that's right.
Let's go ahead and get this cranked up. And I have something coming up going into the end of the first year of my presidency that is really going to tick people off. But we need to save the political capital that we have for that one. So let's go ahead and get going to the fourth quarter of year one. So let's see. Let's click to return to government. Rubbish tip protests. Green protesters have staged a noisy protest at the location of a proposed landfill site on the outskirts of one of our cities. Local people are also angry at the placement of the site. Campaigners say the government needs to do more to encourage recycling and reduce waste unless they want to find yet more sites for landfill and face more protests. So environmentalists aren't happy with us. Credit rating being downgraded really sucks, but it's because we have a huge national debt, according to the game. So we're at a B, but I have a plan for that. If you guys just stick in and hold in with me long enough, believe in Runt, and Runt will believe in you. So let's see. Human Rights Society says it's actively encouraging its members to oppose the current government. Yeah. Human Rights Society. These guys are not happy with us, but that's all right. Let's go back to that real quick. And we've still got 22% of the polls. So creating jobs in prisons, people weren't real happy with that. But, hey, we'll get there. And our GDP is tanking at the moment. But...
Well, you've got 4 years to do it, and, this is just a start.
But it really, nothing has gone completely awry, A, and B, we haven't had any more red buttons pop up. We're kind of treading water, but we're paying down the national debt, even if it's, a surplus of $24.13 billion. And I don't think the game takes into account interest on the national debt. But anyhow, let's go into...
Well, and maybe this is a good time maybe to mention, too, people get confused between deficit and debt. The deficit is just like surplus, right? In the current quarter, in this particular quarter, we had 1.178 trillion of income. We spent slightly less than that. So we had $24 billion left over in the quarter. That's a surplus. If we spent more in the quarter, then it would be a deficit. The debt is the accumulation of deficits over time. So it's like if you overspend your credit card and you don't pay it off fully every month, the balance on your credit card goes up and up and up. That's what the debt is. And that's something people get confused over, deficit and debt.
Okay, well, and like I said, here's going to be the sticker that people are going to want to hang me from the flagpole on top of the White House. So, I don't want to raise it huge, but we need more money. We need more money. And I hate to say it like that, but I want to work in a positive budget. And by getting that ability, we're paying down the national debt, raising our credit rating. Overall, it's going to be a lot easier for us if we maintain that positive balance in our quarterly spending, to have that surplus, like you were saying, surplus versus deficit, to pay down the debt. So right now we staunched the bleeding of our budget. Now that's really, we basically put a tourniquet on the budget. Now what I want to do is I want to clean the wound, dress the wound, and, get it healing. So what I'm proposing, and if you look at this, I'm going to revert those changes real quick. Our income off of income tax at 31% is $651.33 billion a quarter. Now, I want to raise this to 37%. And there's a reason why, because it's not really going to adversely affect any of these sliders very much. But look at how much money we're going to be able to get. So, going to 37, not 39, 37. 37. There we go. 776.93. So $777 billion a quarter. We were at, $625? So that's $150. $150. I wish. $150 billion on top of the $24 billion surplus that we've got as it goes into first quarter year 2. So, and
our military deductions still haven't fully kicked in either. They're still coming in, so that'll help even more.
Right. So, okay, we reduce the military. We're raising the taxes on everybody, which kind of sucks. But overall, it plays right into the goal that I wanted to go for. Capitalists are really not happy with it. It says equality is brought into it a little bit. Middle incomes are hit the hardest of all. And everybody's earnings go down a little bit, but our earnings actually go up. So I'm going to enact that policy and go with it from there.
We might want to pay the Secret Service a little more too, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. If our president did that, then that would be it. But anyway, guys, before we get out of here, I'm going to go ahead and let's see what we've got going on. That's going to be the end of the fourth quarter, year one. And let's see how that affected everything before we get out of here. So, crime is actually going down. We gained 4% in the polls. Anyhow, let's see. 4%. It really doesn't show anything. Budget report. I want to see where in the world does it tell me how much money we're making. Let's go ahead and look at it. Now we've got a surplus of $135.75 billion a quarter going into year two of my presidency. So, guys, I hope you like the series. And next Friday is going to be when the next episode comes out. So, awesome. I can't wait for you guys to see that. And until then, we'll see you next time. Bye now.